actually the first week of July.
But that's not going to stop us from doing a June garden tour. You guys know I always wait until the very last week of the month before I do our monthly garden tours, and I can't remember what I was doing last week. It was either very, very hot or it was raining. I don't remember, but I didn't get it done. Or I might have just been like super, super tired. Anyways, it's actually the first week of July. But I don't think it's too far away from the end of June to be able to do our June garden tour. So there's a lot of overcast in the sky right now. It was drizzling for a little bit earlier today, so it's only in the low 80s, and that is very bearable compared to what it has been. So it feels great right now. So I'm going to show you guys what things are looking like in the garden. Let's take a tour. Okay, here's our full overview of the garden. How things are looking here at the beginning of July. It's July the 2nd. But as you can see, we have not been watering the grass, so it's definitely looking drier than it was. We are going to try to pick that back up, but we were crossing our fingers that monsoon season would have arrived by now, and it has not. So we have not received any of the heavy downpours that we usually get at the beginning of July, but hopefully it's on its way. But here's how things are looking. Let's start over here at the arch trellises. Okay, right over here at the first arch trellis, I pulled some weeds out of here this past week. We have a sun gold tomato growing up there. One thing that I think I'm going to try next year is pruning less my sun gold tomatoes, because in the 2 years that I've been growing them, they haven't really been susceptible to disease, but I have noticed them slow down drastically once the heat comes on. So what I'm thinking is, if I leave more foliage on the plant, that'll help keep them cool when we hit these hot days of June, July, and August. So I think next year I won't prune them so drastically like I did this year. So you can see this sun gold looks very spindly because it has like almost no foliage on it. And that's what helps keep the plant cool. We have a Berry's Crazy Cherry here that hasn't started producing yet. A lot of grass growing up right there. The kale is still holding on, even though the aphids have been trying to get it as of late. And then we have our sedum here that looks like it's starting to get its bloom stalk. I want to say last year they started blooming maybe towards the end of August. This past week I direct sowed some, I think, provider bush beans there. And there's daffodils underplanted. So daffodils are still down there, and then I just direct sowed the bush beans this past week. One of these days I'll pick that up. Over here you can see more gorgeous sun gold tomatoes that are ready to harvest. We'll do a market on Wednesday, so I'll probably harvest these. Honestly, I'll probably harvest these tomorrow for Wednesday's market. We have our peppermint over here that looks like it's doing just fine. I'll probably harvest some of that for the market as well. And then our, I think it's called Lunix lettuce, is finally going to seed. So here's our lettuce seed. I'm gonna let this self-seed. And I know this peppermint is kind of like encroaching. Oh, here we go. Here's some viable seeds. The peppermint is kind of encroaching in this area, but that's okay. We'll see where else this lettuce pops up in the years to come. Let's take a look right back here. Okay, on this side, I think I'm tempted to remove this shade cloth so I can trellis up these tomatoes a little bit better, but it's so hot right now, like during the heat of the day. I don't know if it actually be beneficial to these or not. So we have several that are ready, that are ripe and ready. Those will all get harvested tomorrow. Today is Sunday, so harvest on Monday, and we'll hold them until Wednesday's market. There's gladiolas in here. I planted a bunch of radish in here just to act as a living mulch, and I think it's doing a pretty good job. So the radish will probably I'm just gonna leave the radish in here. I don't have any plans for it because it's actually pretty spicy. So these are gladiolas, a gladiolus mix, along with French breakfast radish. Okay, and right across the way, the lemon balm, which every month I'm saying, I need to harvest this, I need to harvest this. And here it is, unharvested. So I don't know if it's gonna get harvested this year or not, but it's starting to make, oh man, this stuff smells so good. I really need to harvest it because, gosh, it's so fragrant. It smells so lovely. We have all this lemon balm here. I might work on this tomorrow morning, to be honest. More sun gold tomatoes. They're looking a little bit spindly. And then there's a sedum there, and a sedum back there, and a couple kale plants. But you guys can see there's just so many weeds in this bed, and these are the weeds that I pulled out of there this past week. So I'm gonna rake those up and get them in the compost at some point. Yeah, I'll most likely clean this up tomorrow because I don't want to not get to partake of the lemon balm this year. If you don't know lemon balm, it's an herb. I typically use it as a tea, and it tastes delicious. It has a slight lemony flavor. It's like a savory lemony flavor, and it's really good to help with lifting the mood and calming the nerves. Here in this bed, we have some absolutely beautiful Swiss chard. This was direct seeded. Typically I start Swiss chard in cell trays. I don't know if I'm going to do that again because I have not had as much success with Swiss chard. Maybe like 2 years ago, but I didn't have this many plants. I direct seeded. I put anywhere from 2 to 4 seeds per hole, and I spaced each hole about 4 inches apart. So these are pretty thickly planted, but I wanted to do it that way so they could help mulch each other and keep the soil cool. And so far, it's been proven to be successful because they haven't been wilting too much in the summer heat. Now, when I harvest them, that's a slightly different story because they wilted pretty quick at our farmer's market. But I think from here on out, I'm just gonna have to keep them in a cup of water at the market. But I think they look absolutely beautiful, and I love all the different vibrant colors. Here we have more gladiola. This was my 3rd succession. That was my 2nd. This was my 3rd. But these are growing at a rate very similar to that 2nd succession. So these are looking pretty good. They're mulched up. Everything. We're working on just mulching stuff really well right now while it's super hot and we're not getting any moisture. We do, oh, there's a green lacewing over there. We do water our garden 3 times a week. Typically, well, we had been doing Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, but that was kind of hard to do. So then we started doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so far, so good. These are our perennial onions. Egyptian walking onions is what they're called. And the bulbils are sprouting. Some of these are pretty far along. In the fall, if these haven't already planted themselves, like once they're super heavy, they'll fall over like this and they'll plant themselves in the soil. I don't think I actually want any more over here because I have all these gladiola. So I'm gonna just chop these off and plant them somewhere else. but I'll probably need to wait until it's a little bit cooler because they'll most likely just shrivel up and die in this intense heat. And here we have the hugelkultur bed. This looks really pretty. Actually super picturesque. I think I'm going to take a picture in front of these Shasta daisies. These just started blooming, but they have come on super fast and all at once that we haven't even got to cut any of them. So we haven't been making any bouquets through the end of June, and here at the beginning of July we haven't made any bouquets just because the Shasta daisies are coming on super fast. And this is actually one of the only flowers we have, but I can see some zinnias blooming. Oh, these are so pretty. I wish I could have cut them, but I can just enjoy them in the garden. And then here we have a sunflower. This was a volunteer. I think this might have came from a pro cut that went to seed, because I did plant some pro cuts here last year. Anyways, let me take a picture here. We'll use it for our thumbnail. Honestly, we might have to take some family pictures right here. This is really pretty before I have to come through and deadhead all of these. Because yes, if you want your flowers to keep blooming, you gotta cut off the spent ones. See, spent. This is trying to make seed, and the plant will put all its energy in this, trying to make seed, as opposed to trying to bloom another flower. So I'm gonna have to come through and cut all the ones that look like this. But yeah, this looks super pretty. Just take it all in. So at the end of the season, I'm gonna have to dig all these up, because when I planted these, it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maybe, and now they've all grown together. So they, in one season, took up all the planting space that I had for them. So I want to plant them somewhere. Oh my goodness, look at the hummingbirds and a bumblebee. Look at nature, you guys. Look at nature. Oh, and a carpenter bee. Oh gosh. Look at that hummingbird. There they go. Okay. Feeling very princess-like as the garden creatures come to say hello. I'm going to show you guys the other side of the hugelkultur bed. Okay, so here's the other side. You see we have gladiolas that are done blooming. Those I'm going to leave in the ground and see if they'll overwinter for me. I'm pretty sure that they will, as long as I mulch them up well, because I have had some overwinter in the past. There's the Shasta daisies. At the end of the season, they'll get cut all the way. When they're done blooming, I'm going to cut them all the way down to the ground. And then probably in January or February of next year, I'll dig them up, divide them. And I have so many Shasta daisies all over my garden. I know I have enough to make like a full garden bed full of them. And I think it'll look so beautiful. This is scabiosa. Those can be cut down at this point. It's a little bit too hot for them, but I got these from Lowe's. They're super pretty, and I really hope that they perennialize for me. I just have to actually keep them alive. We have carnations here. Those took about a year to bloom. They'll be perennial. And then this bed looks kind of sad. This bed is kind of like a hodgepodge of different things. So we have some Berry's Crazy Cherry tomato plants that I haven't taken the best of care. I think I might end up replacing these, but I'm not going to make any decisions just yet. We have some blank space here that needs to be weeded and mulched. A self-seeded lettuce that has survived the summer. And then I don't actually feel like going back there, so I'll just tell you, there is a lot of green grass growing at the edge of that tomato bed. So it's full of nutrients and getting lots of water, but I don't necessarily want the grass there. So I'm gonna need to come through, and what I did last time is I just cut it all down and then use the clippings as mulch. Grass clippings make a great mulch, but there are some sun gold tomatoes there. These two beds are still relatively new, so we're still working on their fertility as well as moisture retention and fighting weeds. But then I have okra here, some direct seeded okra. It's kind of patchy. It came up in some areas and in some it didn't. But there's okra back there. We can go just look over here real quick at the okra. It's short. The plants are short, but they're also very close together. A lot of them, they're super close together, but I did that intentionally because I direct seeded. But look, this is a full-size okra. So I'm gonna harvest that maybe in the morning. Here's another okra and another okra, and they're cute. I'm gonna work on trying to like okra this year. So there's that. We'll go ahead and walk through Tomato Alley. I like growing tomatoes here because the cattle panels, or because of the trellising system that we have. But I think I'm gonna need to use a different method in the future. I don't know. We have a lot of weeds to fight. So anyways, this is what we call Tomato Alley because there's tomatoes running this way and supposed to be tomatoes running this way. And then here we have lilies, a compost pile, don't look too close, and a couple volunteer sunflowers back there. At the base of this tree, I planted some lettuce, and hey, it's holding on pretty good for the summer. I won't be harvesting any of it right now because it'll probably be pretty bitter. But if it fares into the fall, then we'll harvest it then. This is head lettuce, so we'll see if we can grow full heads. I kind of planted them kind of close to get any full heads of lettuce, but we shall see. We call this our split raised bed because there's a plank in the middle. And then we have Shasta daisies here that have, these have just started blooming. We won't get to make any flower arrangements out of them either. At this point, they're just for the pollinators. We had Shasta daisies for several weeks in bouquets. So now nature just gets to enjoy it. We have 4 blueberry plants here that are getting acclimated to New Mexico. So that's all I can say for them, is that they're getting acclimated. There's a blueberry down here that looks like it was starting to ripen. But it's so hot. Ooh. It's so hot. Here's another one. These are like, they're supposed to be a powdery blue. It's so hot that these are almost like dehydrating on the plants. I was like talking to the camera for like minutes and minutes and minutes, showing you Tomato Alley, and just realized I never pressed record. And I ate 2 blueberries from our blueberry plants, and they were absolutely delicious. But yeah, you had to be there. I think this blueberry is ready. So let's do a taste test. I ate 2 blueberries earlier from this same plant, but I didn't record any of it. That is really good. It's tart. It's making my mouth water. It's tart and sweet. That variety is called Brightwell Blueberry. And I haven't really, it could probably have been a little bit more ripe, but it's been so hot here that a lot of the blueberries have actually been dehydrating on the plants. So that's telling me 2 things. 1, I need to mulch better and more. Number 2, I need to water better and more deeply. 3 of those plants are still in their pots, and I actually just buried the pots under the soil. And one of them I pulled out of its pot and transplanted it fully. And I'm not noticing a huge difference regarding doing that. I think once they've been in this area for 1 to 2 years, they'll be used to the intensity of the New Mexico UV rays. And I've still been giving them soil acidifier, and I think I'm going to keep doing that. They're in a raised bed, so I can have a little bit more control over the pH of their soil. Let's look at the front side of this split raised bed. Okay, these are like my first good size zinnias. Look at this. I love zinnias. I did not do that great of a job getting them planted this year. In a lot of places, I just ended up scattering seeds. Some came up, some didn't. This one's ready to harvest, but I'm at least glad to see them this year, because at one point I wasn't even sure if I was going to get to see them, but here they are. They're so pretty. I love that fuchsia color. We have the Shasta daisies and some lemon balm here. We have a pomegranate. This pomegranate we've had for like 3 years now. And this is our first year with fruit. It is sizing up. Very nice. Very nice. This looks like it's making some more blooms. But yeah, this is looking super good. And then, there's aphids on here. I'm not gonna deal with those right now. I'll come back and spray them off with some water in the morning. Those are our pomegranates. We have a currant bush back here, which I'm not about to maneuver my way back there right now, but it's there, and the currants are ripening up very nicely. And here's our Alamogordo sunset sunflowers. There's calendula down there that's all done and going to seed. We harvested our garlic this past week. Someone is shooting fireworks. Look at that. The bees really like these. Yep. So these are starting to go to seed. And then we're going to take a look at the 3 beds there. I call these my flower beds. These are 10 feet long. And I call these my market beds right behind me. So let's take a quick look at the flower beds. We have some carrots. Look at this baby carrot. This needed to be thinned, so here we go. Little baby carrot. I might give that to one of my kids. Let me go ahead and get 2 because I already know. So, you know, when you plant carrots, you can just pull them out from time to time to see how far along they are. And these still have a ways to go. These don't get very long. I want to say these are Danvers half long, but they definitely get more of a circumference to them. So they still have a while yet to go. There's comfrey there. All this here was the comfrey got big and flowered, and I chopped and dropped it. And now it is growing again and relatively quickly. We have a little bit of basil here, some weeds, a volunteer sunflower. This one is going to seed. These are some pro-cut sunflowers that I direct seeded. Some are doing well, some not so well. This is why I don't typically direct seed, because germination can be very spotty at times. Keeping the soil moist can be difficult at times. And yeah, especially in the heat of the summer. There's volunteer lettuce. I'm just gonna let that grow, see what it does, and probably collect seed from it. And then here on the other side, all of this partially is accidental because I was sowing sunflowers and my daughter spilt the parsley seed into the container of soil that I was using for the sunflowers. So originally there was a lot of sunflowers here, and now they've all been cut, but I just left all the parsley because someone told me they make really pretty flowers. So I want to see what the parsley flowers look like. And then I scattered a bunch of zinnia seeds in here. You can kind of see them coming up. We'll have fall zinnias, but I really like having zinnias in the summer. I just wasn't able to get them in as early as I wanted to. Some of this lettuce is going to seed, and that was sown from lettuce tape. We have snapdragons that need to be cut back. A lot of weeds that need to be pulled. This is a carrot plant going to seed. I used a lot of the flowers from it, and now it's putting on like secondary and tertiary blooms. So they were much shorter than the original flowers I cut from it. And at this point, I'm gonna let them go to seed. There's some lettuce down there and some Berry's Crazy Cherry tomato plants. This is definitely the point of the season where it's kind of hard to stay on top of the weeds, but we're working on it little by little. This is a Shasta daisy plant. This one is completely done. You can see all the flowers are wilted and trying to go to seed. So I'm gonna cut this one all the way down to the ground, and then it'll start growing leaves again, which is good, so that way I know where it is for whenever I dig it up in the early spring. There's a couple of lilies that we cut here. There's parsley over here. This was intentionally grown here, so this parsley is intentional. I'm gonna let that stay here to go to flower, but I believe it's starting to get too warm for parsley. And then these have been super exciting and delicious. These are shishito peppers, and I don't know, these look like a chartreuse color. Is that the color they're supposed to be? The foliage looks like a super like Kelly green, and then the peppers look like more of a chartreuse. That's what they have been for us. And they've been great. They are not spicy at all. And they say, you know, every 1 out of 10 can be spicy, but so far we haven't come across any. But they're very prolific. You can see all the peppers on these plants. I want to try to dig these up to overwinter them. So we'll see how big they get. Right now they're probably about 1 foot tall. So they're not super tall, but they're fruiting really well, even for such a compact plant. But I think I'm gonna dig these up right before our first frost and pot them up and see. We're talking about getting a greenhouse, so maybe we could keep them in a greenhouse over winter. We don't really get below, we barely get below 32 here, so we'll see. There was a couple times where it was like 17 to 20 degrees, so we'll see. We have a grow room in our basement, so that's another possibility as well. This whole bed needs to be cleaned up. It is snapdragons, dead daffodil foliage, and that's all. I'm gonna put tomatoes here once my cuttings have gotten some substantial roots. And then in these 2 beds, I put peonies, which is kind of a precarious thing to do with this retaining wall being here because this gets so hot. But we did put shade cloth, and I think after a year or 2, they'll be used to it. And what I eventually want to do, I think, is grow something here along this edge that can take the heat and that will grow big enough to block some of the heat coming off of that retaining wall. But yeah, this thing does get warm, but I'm feeling the difference between the shaded area and the not shaded area. And there's a difference. Yeah, there's a noticeable difference. So these could probably just use some water, but you can see they got a little bit sunburned. But I think they'll get used to it after a year or so. There's my eucalyptus tree on the flower path, and a volunteer sunflower. Let's go take a look at the flower path. Here we are. Last area of the garden to look at. Our flower path. I have some mums over here that I planted last year. This one, I'm not sure why it's yellowing right here, but that's an issue that it's dealing with. I have dahlias. These have not bloomed this year, so I'm looking forward to fall blooms. Where I live, if I want spring blooms, I have to start my tubers in like October, and I experimented with that last year. So I was able to get spring blooms last year, but I had to start my tubers in like October of the previous year and grow them inside November, December, January, February, and planted them out at the end of March. And then I got blooms in the spring, and I liked it. And then they stalled out for me once the heat of the summer came, and then bloomed a little bit more in the fall. So if I want 2 flushes, that's what I have to do. But if I just want fall blooms, then I put these in at the end of spring. But this is what I've noticed. This is what I've noticed. They get incredibly dry through the summer, and they just struggle with the heat. So you can see they're getting crispy. And last year I grew my dahlias under shade cloth, and at the end of this year I'll probably dig them up and then next year plant them under the shade, because as much as I want them to be acclimated to the New Mexico summers, because dahlias are native to Mexico, I don't know, you know, I think these tubers might have been grown somewhere up north, so who knows. But this mum here is already blooming, and then we have a mum there and some spent Shasta daisies, which I plan on cutting all the way back down to the ground. So I need to do this clump here, these here, and these here. These actually still, I mean, the foliage of these actually still looks pretty good. That one over there looks really sad, but they're gonna get cut all the way down to the ground. They should have gotten enough sunlight at this point to be able to regenerate for next year. Okay, I cut down all my snapdragons, so we'll see if they come back or not. I'm starting some other perennial flowers, so if the snapdragons don't come back, I have some other varieties on standby that I'll be able to get in the fall. We have our eucalyptus. This, I want to say, is 3 years old. This is a eucalyptus tree. I started it from seed, and it smells amazing. It's so tiny though to be 3 years old. But yeah, I want this to grow here and then provide extra shade for this back area by the wall, because eucalyptus can take the heat. We have our spent hollyhock. I did save seed from this. These are our black hollyhocks, and there's more seed that are ready. I might let some of these go. Oop, we'll see if it self-seeds. I'm gonna let some of these go. You can see what the hollyhock seeds look like. I got a lot already from this plant, so I'm not too terribly worried about it. Then we have cosmos. One thing I learned about cosmos is they like to bloom after summer solstice. So after the daylight hours start getting shorter, then they like to bloom, because I've had these things in the ground for a couple months and have gotten very few flowers. But they should come on strong in August. And then there's a volunteer sunflower there. That's how the flower path is looking. There's not a lot of flowers on it right now. I didn't get my marigolds in like I wanted to either. So I've kind of let go of that endeavor for this year. And there you have it. I can't find my tripod, so I have my phone balanced on the cattle panel trellis, so this is the angle that we're getting. But that's how the garden is looking here in our June garden tour. I am really hoping that come the end of July, I could have a good chunk of the weeds cleaned up. And I hope at that point the zinnias have started blooming, because I have a good amount of zinnias seeded into the garden. And those are one that you can leave to bloom for a little while before you cut them for bouquets. So I really enjoy having them in the garden. It's just, they're slow coming on right now because I didn't start them from transplants. So we'll see how far along they are by the end of July. So definitely come back here the last week of July to see how the garden is looking at that point. Thanks for following along to see how our 2023 garden is growing here at Squire Studio Micro Farm. And until next time, keep learning and keep growing.